Hello, I'm Andrew Thomas Price. Welcome to the channel. And today I'm taking a look at the Arktis B211 Mountain Smock. Now this smock was originally designed for Special Forces troops operating in a mountainous environment, and it's one of the most advanced smocks of its type available on the market today. Now it forms what the military refer to as a part of a multi-tiered survival system. By that they mean that the clothing that you wear, the smock and the contents of the pockets are Tier 1. Tier 2 would be your webbing containing your ammunition and other supplies, and Tier 3 is your main bergen, which contains your sleeping bag and all the other basic field equipment that you might use. Now the survival smock needs to contain everything that you'd need to survive a night separated from the rest of your equipment. So that includes protection from the elements, so we have survival equipment to keep us warm. We also have the means to light a fire, as well as the means to purify and collect water and some food. So I'm a civilian, no one's going to be shooting at me, so we're just doing this for fun. But I'm planning to use this smock and the contents of the pockets to see if I can spend a night outside on a pretty cold Welsh evening. So stick with me. The B211 Mountain Smock is made by Arktis, which is a British company based in Exeter, and it was founded by a couple of Royal Marines back in the 1980s. So they know a thing or two about making military equipment and robust equipment that can be used in the outdoors. And a lot of military equipment works really well for bushcraft. That's why I went for the olive green rather than the camouflage version. And this jacket has a whole host of specialist features. It's made from 50/50 ripstop fabric, which is incredibly tough. And if you do rip it, because of that ripstop, it won't continue to rip, so it'll just stop there. It's also flame resistant, which is very important for bushcraft, and it's treated with what they call DWR, which is durable water resistance, and that is designed to shed water and make it more water resistant, if not waterproof. So it's a very well designed jacket, comes with a host of pockets. So while I'm standing here, and before I show you the contents of the pockets, I'll just talk a little bit more about the features of this jacket. And it has a lot of pockets, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it also has this very large, voluminous hood, which can be adjusted at the back here. And this hood has a wire frame, so that helps to keep it out of your face so that you can have good vision while you're walking, and you can kind of pull the wire side down if it's really blowing from one side or the other. So this type of hood works really, really well. It has another feature which is pretty much unheard of in any other smock, as far as I'm aware. If I undo these two buttons at the front here, I can pull down this net veil. How awesome is that? So this is designed to help to camouflage my face so that I can be observing wildlife, or obviously from a military capacity it's designed to hide me from other people. But this is great if I'm observing badgers or doing anything in the outdoors. If I want to stalk closer to wildlife, this can come in really, really handy. It also, even though it's a net, it actually helps to keep your face a little bit warmer as well. So if you're just sort of sitting down in a hide watching the wildlife, it helps to kind of keep that heat in a little bit more. So a really great design feature, not something you see very often on any other jackets. So let's look at the pockets and see what I put in them. I've already talked about the hood, which has the wire support and the sniper veil. So that's really well designed. You can see at the back here, it has this Velcro, which helps to reduce the volume if you want to kind of close it down. It also has these 3 holes on either side, which help to allow you to hear what's going on, which is always useful. And they're protected on the inside by this liner, so you won't get the wind blowing in your ear. So we also have on the inside this enormous poacher's pocket here, which is actually in 2 halves, so you can just stuff loads of equipment into there, and that just, you don't even have to think about it, you just whack that into there. That can also be stuffed with things like bracken if you wanted to create an insulated seat if you're having to sort of bunker out in the outdoors. We have a left hand side internal pocket with a zip closure, so that's great for anything that you're wanting to protect on the inside and you don't want to lose. We have the same on the right hand side here. I haven't actually put anything in these at the moment. And then we have the waist draw cord and the draw cord at the hem as well. So you've got lots of options to bring it all in, as well as the hood draw cord here. So that's the inside of the smock. So I'm just going to flip it closed again here. And now we have our heavy duty main central zip, which runs down here. And there's two options for the zips here. So you can zip it up from the bottom on a hot day, let some more air into here. And I always put a nice button compass on there. This is actually a really good quality one from Polymath Products. So we've got a few items of theirs in this review today. And we've got the two lower box pockets here. So these hold quite a lot of material. So I'm going to start off on the right hand side and work my way around. I should mention as well as the front zip, it also has these heavy duty buttons as well. So the front closure is very secure. We've got that windproof layer at the front as well. So starting on the right hand side, I'm just going to open this first pocket here. So we have my F1X by Falkniven. This is a great survival knife. This is part of their professional range, and quite a small compact bladed knife, but really good, just general purpose survival. So that's a good basic knife to have with me for an overnight camp, so I'll put that there. I've also used this pocket to keep my first aid kit in, and this is one of the adventure medical kits from SOL, and quite lightweight, contains everything I need for basic first aid. Now this is the one that they recommend for mountain hiking and things like that, so I'll just put that here. That's everything in that pocket. Moving on. So my left front pocket, I've put a tin of Horlicks tablets. I used to love these when I was a kid. They're basically Horlicks, which is a drink that we used to have before bed, but they're compressed into tablets, very high energy. And interestingly enough, these tablets were included in RAF survival rescue kits. So quite a good bit of history to them, and they taste amazing. And you could crush them up and make a drink out of them as well, but I tend to just eat them as they are. So that's my food ration, or part of it. What else do we have? Some tissues, always have tissues in there. And I've put this little container. This is actually a container for Barocca, which is a vitamin supplement you can get in the UK. It contains a lot of vitamin B. And I always use the small containers because they have a little desiccant in the lid. So in the lid here you have a little cardboard cover, and underneath that is a desiccant. So I use this to keep my tinder, which is just cotton wool, and that helps to keep the tinder dry. So the container itself is waterproof, and I've wrapped a good amount of duct tape around there as well, so that's always useful for lots of different things. So just a multi-use item there. And I also have this Exotac sewing kit, which is a really well designed piece of equipment. You've got the cotton on the outside, and then the needle is on the inside. So that's a really nicely designed piece of equipment as well. Oh, I haven't finished. And then some Exogel also from Polymath Products. So this is great as either an emergency fuel if I need to cook or make a brew over it, or it can be used as a fire lighter. So it's a gel fuel that is air transportable, so it can be taken on an aeroplane without any problems at all. So moving on to the left hand breast pocket, and here I have a bunch of survival items on dummy cords. So I've got another button compass, also from Polymath Products, a little emergency flashlight just so I can find things. I've got a Light My Fire Army Fire Steel. These are great, gives you about 16,000 strikes, so really very, very good material for fire lighting. I also have a Phoenix E12 that takes a single AA battery, so it's just a very simple pen light torch, quite bright, and that's everything that I keep in there. By keeping it all on dummy cords, it stops me from losing everything, and I know where everything is. Let's close that back up. I'm going to leave everything out actually, so I'm going to leave all that out even though it's on dummy cords. What do we have in here? So we've got a map pocket here. I don't have a map with me, but I do have a waterproof notebook, so I'll leave that there. Moving on to the right hand side, I've got another notebook. These are from Polymath Products, so they do them in two different sizes. Really useful. if you want to write your last will and testament, if you're in a survival situation, or your shopping list for on the way home. So just always handy to have a waterproof notepad with you. And I've got some of this SOL survival paracord, which is brilliant because it contains, as well as being a useful strong cord, it also contains tinder on the inside as well. It does that, does it? Just want to check.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I've also got a length of SOL paracord, and this is great stuff. Very, very strong, as most paracords are, but because this is the tinder cord, we have a small amount of waxed, I think it's jute, and I can pull that out there, and that is a flammable material for fire lighting. So I can also pull all of these 7 different strands out, and they form extra cordage for fishing lines and things like that. So just a little bit of that for today, so I'll leave that there. The front right hand breast pocket, I've got my Castron Lars Falt UK legal penknife, so it's a backup knife, a really, really good quality knife with a 0 Scandi edge, which is unusual on a folding knife, but it makes it very suitable for working wood. So it's a great emergency backup knife, or even a primary knife if it's all you had with you. And I've got an emergency whistle as well. That should be on a cord, but that'll stay there for now. This pocket here is interesting. So we've got the right hand side map pocket here, but this zip here allows us to get into the inside. So if I want to get something from one of my inside pockets or just scratch my side here, I can go in through there. So that's a very useful feature as well. And then we move around to the right hand shoulder pocket. So this one, I would guess, is designed for carrying a field dressing in a military capacity. So that's what I've done. But I've decided, instead of the usual Israeli dressing, I've put one of these OLES dressings in, and these are a really well designed piece of first aid equipment. They can be used as a dressing, as they are, or you can pull the internal gauze out and use that for packing wounds. So this is a multi-purpose first aid item, really good for severe trauma or anything like that. So I always keep one of those for very serious bleeding injuries, worth keeping close by, and the right hand side is a good place to have that. Likewise, on the left hand side, I have a tourniquet. This is the Rhino Rescue version, and these are a superb way of stopping very severe traumatic bleeds from amputations or stab wounds or anything of that nature. So these can be used on any of the limbs to stop bleeding further down. So worth keeping one of those on you at all times as well. Also keep a Sharpie, just because Sharpies are always handy to have around, and that's all I have there. So that's the contents of the front of the jacket and the 2 arms. So I'm going to flip it around now, see what we have at the back. This is where all of the really big voluminous pockets are. So it's almost like having extra webbing. So you've got all these pockets much lower down. Before I talk about those, I'll just mention these here, which are underarm ventilation zips. So climate control is very important, especially if you're on the move. You want to try and reduce your body heat, and then when you get where you're going, you can just zip these back up, and that will close off this smock and keep you warm again. So very useful to have all these extra vents, just to let that cold air in when you're on the move, when you want to keep moving. So we've got 3 large pockets at the back here. So we'll look at the central one first of all. So that's held by 3 big buttons here. I do actually like buttons because they're just a little bit less fussy than zips sometimes. So in here I've got my rations. I was going to bring some freeze-dried rations with me, which would have been a lot lighter, but these are just the contents of army ration packs. So they're boil in the bag wet rations. So I've got some steak, vegetables and dumplings, which are very, very tasty actually. Don't believe what anyone tells you about military ration packs, they're amazing. And I've also got chicken, sausage and beans. That's the breakfast, so it's two main meals there. I've got 1 sachet of orange energy drink, a spork, some sachets of sugar, 1 alcohol-free wet wipe, And last but most certainly not least, I've got a tube of no normal coffee. This is amazing, very high in caffeine, and it's basically instant coffee in a tube, so you can either just sort of rub it on your gums if you're just needing a quick caffeine boost, or you can make it into a very strong cup of coffee, and it's absolutely beautiful. These guys are a fairly recent startup. I think they're in Switzerland, and definitely worth trying their product. So if you need that early morning caffeine kick, this is your go-to. So great to have in an emergency smock. So I'll put that back there. Also, a good length of paracord with a Ranger band, so these can be used to hold things, or you can cut this up as extra tinder. So it's just rubber, it'll burn very easily. I've got some 550 paracord there, well worth having. And now we have an amazing piece of equipment. This is the SOL Escape Bivy, which is an olive green thermal bivy bag, which is breathable. Absolutely superb piece of equipment there. So I'll be hopefully sleeping in that and seeing how that goes. So really quite excited about using this piece of kit because I've been hearing a lot about them. And that's it for the main pocket there. So moving on to what is now my right, but would be my left hand rear pocket. Okay, so I'm trying to keep the contents of this jacket logical. So I've got my shelter in one, I've got my cooking equipment in this one. So I've got a waterproof bag here. We've got a Phantom methylated spirit stove there. This is also from Polymath Products. I'll show you that in a moment. And delving further into this bag, I've got a water bag. This is a 16-ounce water bag, which is part of the Sawyer Mini water filtration system. So this bag can be used to store water and to carry water, or we can use this bag to fill with untreated water, and then we can force that through the Sawyer filter by screwing this onto here. And these are a superb emergency water filter. They'll filter, I think it's in the hundreds of thousands of litres of water. Brilliant. Quite a reasonable flow rate, certainly good enough for a survival type kit. Very effective as well. And I've put a little container of methylated spirits here as well for the stove. So that's our water treatment, and I've got a stainless steel military mug. I think this is a Dutch one, or Danish perhaps, and that can be used for drinking from obviously, but also for cooking in, so it's multi-use as well. Going back to the Phantom stove by Polymath Products. We've had a few items from Polymath recently, so they are a very cool setup. It's got some spare windproof matches there, and this is the stove itself, so it's all velcroed together. This is the windshield, which helps to protect the whole thing. If anyone's used a methylated spirit stove, you know they're quite susceptible to wind, so that will be very useful. And the stove burner itself is here, so it's just a fabric wick which you can soak with methylated spirits and light that, and then the stove itself then can go on top. So I've set up the Phantom stove off camera. It's a really cleverly designed piece of kit, just a couple of stainless steel plates, and it has a couple of options. So we can put this one into here, which gives us a platform where we can use the exogel. So if we decided to use the exogel fuel instead of the methylated spirit burner, we could. Or by removing that, we can put the methylated spirits burner under here, and then we've got the pot stand here. So it's a really well designed piece of kit. It's got the windshield, everything is self-contained, and it doesn't weigh very much. So that's the Phantom stove by Polymath Products, really well designed, and I'll be using that in the next video as well. And that's all it is. So we've got the fuel there, we've got two options for fuel, we've got the cooking pot, we've got the stove itself, we've got the windshield, and the methylated spirits burner. So I could dispense with one or the other of those, but they weigh so little it's hardly worth worrying about them. So we'll get back to that later on. And last but most certainly not least, we have the right hand rear pocket, or kidney pouch I think these are referred to as. And in here I've got some very heavy duty bin bags or trash bags. Now these are useful for all sorts of things. You could use them to make an extra waterproof layer, so like a gilet that would keep you a little bit drier, or they can be stuffed with leaves or bracken or dry grass, and these can make a very effective insulating mat for sleeping out overnight. So I've got 2 of these bags here, very, very heavy duty gauge. I think they're 500 gauge, so really useful to have those. And I also have a DD Superlight Tarp S. Now this is the lightest, most compact tarp that DD tarps do, and I was looking on their website and I really like the look of this one because I've been using DD tarps for donkey's years, the standard DD tarps, which are fine, but for this type of survival kit I wanted something a lot more compact and a lot more lightweight. And it weighs very little, doesn't say the size, but it's a 2.8 by 1.5 meter tarp, so it makes a perfect shelter for one person, can be erected in a lot of different ways, and this comes with guy lines and pegs as well. So possibly dispense with the pegs if I wanted to make my own, but for the purposes of this I've just left them in there. So very compact, the most compact tarp that DD do, and definitely one to put in a kit like this. So very excited about using all this kit for an overnighter. I'm pretty confident it will do the job superbly. That's the overview of the Arktis B211 Mountain Smock. Now, this is the contents that I've put in mine, and I've covered all my basics. I've covered my shelter, my water purification, I've got some food in there, I've also got some first aid equipment. So everything I need for an overnight camp is here, and I'll be really interested in hearing what you would put in your survival smock for an overnight camp, so please comment down below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and share it with your friends. And I'll see you next time when I'll be testing this smock and all the contents in an overnight survival challenge.